Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk FS. In today's episode, we are going to cover a variety of different topics because I'm joined by Emmanuel Asuquo, who is a TV financial expert appearing on BBC Channel 4. He's an author as well. He's an IFA at heart and also a real passionate advocate of financial coaching. So, going to go through a variety of different things in the conversation. But first of all, Emmanuel, thank you for joining me. And also, let's start at the start, shall we? Where did your journey begin as a financial advisor and your content creation journey as well?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really good to be here, Ryan. Where did it start? I guess I started back when I used to be a cashier at Barclays. So I was a cashier at Barclays while I was doing my degree in accounting and finance, and that was when I was 19. I was a cashier part time. Did my degree. When I finished my degree, became a financial advisor at 22, and straight out of uni. So it was a big transition going from a cashier or all the way to now being an actual financial advisor, giving advice and so forth, especially being the youngest financial advisor in Barclays at the time. And then that then built on learning, going through the journey. Obviously, moving, I left Barclays, worked for some different banks. Your father was actually got me one of my jobs along the way. It's a big full circle moment there. Yeah, it's just been a journey of learning and developing. And then really I got to a point where I was like, you know what, I was tired of kind of just helping rich people get richer. My background is coming from a council estate, parents are immigrants, being the firstborn in my family here in the UK. I really wanted to make a difference and an impact to a community that I never saw during my day. I wanted to be able to give financial advice not only to people that were wealthy, but also people that I felt needed it most. How do you get to the point where I have 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 to invest if no one's ever taught me how to manage 500, 100,000 pounds? So for me, that was really important. So that's when I decided to go on social media, and start teaching people about finance and money. And then the rest is history. I got seen by Channel 4 and, it hasn't stopped since. So yeah, it's gone in a whole different direction. And yeah, it's been amazing.
Fantastic. So I imagine back when you were in the bank and you were telling your friends and family and your community, I'm a financial advisor. I imagine they must have been saying, come on, give me some tips then. What shall I be doing? But in your day job, you were dealing with such, the different end of the spectrum. So is that what sort of started that passion for helping the everyday person, should we say?
Yeah, 100%. You got it spot on. So I used to, be in the bank and help clients who have portfolios might have 2 million, 3 million, and we're thinking about strategies on how do we make this into 5 million, 10 million in the future. How do we pass this down to our children, grandchildren? How do we use trust and all these complex different things? And I would go to my community and friends and family, and they would only know finance from a position of borrowing. So they'd be like, can you help me get a credit card? Can you help me get a loan? Can you help me, get an overdraft? And so I kept thinking, well, I meet a certain set of people where I'm helping them invest and grow their money. And I meet people who come from a community like me, similar to where I come from, and they more understand it from a place of being in debt and owing the bank rather than, the bank helping them make their money grow. And so for me, it was, how do I come in and teach the lessons that I'm learning and experiencing with my clients to the people that I feel like need it the most? How do I meet them where they're at? Because there are other ways to do it. And so that was the conversations, and that was why it was the conflict of, okay, I'm going to work and I'm having meetings in Mayfair and Chelsea and, in Canary Wharf. And, when you're meeting really lovely clients, they're paying for your dinners and they're taking you places, and, you're going on experiences and all of this. And that's great. At the end of the day, I was only 22, 23. I'd still go home. I still lived with my parents. I'd still go home to a council estate and be around these surroundings. And so it was about really, how do I change this environment? How do I make better for the community that I come from? And so that was why I said, okay, I need to be on social media spreading this knowledge.
And when you had that internal conflict, were you asking your managers at the time, why aren't we doing more to help, everyone? Was that something you were asking?
Yeah, definitely. But I just think also from it's a business, right? And so, from a business point of view, I think the answers I always got is that it's great to help. You know, if you want to go and give talks and workshops and so forth, that's fine for you to do in your own time. But obviously, we're paying you to make us money, and so we need people with money to only people with at a certain have a certain amount of money that can be beneficial to the bank. And so a lot of the time, unless clients had 50 100K, they couldn't really we couldn't really help them. And so there was insurances there, but depending on the bank you were with, certain banks didn't really push insurance, so they didn't really get paid from insurance, so you weren't really encouraged to do insurance, even though it was something that's really needed. So these are the types of internal conflicts that were happening. So it became a thing where I really wanted to make a difference, and I felt like the only way I could do it was on my own time. So I then started giving talks on the weekends and in the evenings, and getting permission from my manager to go visit schools and give talks at schools, and it just became so much, and I enjoyed it so much, but it became such a conflict because at the end of the day I had targets to meet, I had work to do, and so I couldn't really help the people I wanted to help. So that's the reason why I had to kind of step away from the banking environment.
Mm. And so that's what set up your passion for content creation, and later then obviously got you the opportunities on the TV, which we'll discuss in a minute, which is really exciting because it's such a rare thing. But that content creation, how did that feel back then? Because we're talking many years ago now, aren't we?
Yeah,
Before it became popular at all, really. What was sort of your feelings at the time? Did you get any feedback from people?
it was it was definitely scary because I wasn't even someone that really liked social media. I was very much about meeting people in person and having face to face conversations. I'm very old school like that. So when I first started on social media, I had like 200 followers. Do you know what I mean? And they were just I knew every single one of them. Do you know what I mean? And so it wasn't a case of I had this platform that I was going to go and build and grow. It was a case of, actually, I just feel like this content needs to be out there. I've got this knowledge and I can do it in a more fun and exciting way than how typical finance was at the time. And so I wanted to make it very relatable, very fun. Yeah. So then I just started posting these videos. And the reality is that I didn't really feel like I didn't get much growth at the beginning. It wasn't like I started posting and it was just a hit. When I started posting these videos, it took time. Your following goes up bit by bit. Then I started getting invited to events and giving talks and so forth. But the real explosion happened, in lockdown. Do you know what I mean? When everybody was at home. And that's why I tell people, it's so important not to wait for the opportunity, but to do the work, and then the opportunity will come. Because what happened in lockdown is because I've been doing these videos for so long, by the time everyone was at home, I had video upon video that people could just go back and scroll and watch. If I had just started, I'd only have maybe 10 videos at the time. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I had hundreds of videos that people could go back, watch, like, comment, share with other people, and people were just finding out about me, and my numbers just started to grow and grow. Then obviously being appearing on the television then skyrocketed that as well. So it was so important for me to actually do what was right for me. And I think sometimes we are so caught up on the numbers and the following that we don't actually do what we want to do because we feel like there's no validation there. But actually, if this is what's important to me and I'm doing what's right I feel is what's right for the people that I want to give it to, and it's right, then do it and forget whether you get 1,000 likes, 100 likes, 10. So I do content. I spend hours on certain videos to work out how to make this really complex thing really simple. And then you'd get 5 likes, and most of them live in my house. Do you know what I mean? And it'd be like, what's this all about? But the reality is that I knew it was the right thing to do, and I knew it was what I love to do. And so over time, and also doing it made me get better, right? So if I compare my first video to my 10th video to my 100th video, it's the progression. You can't become excellent overnight. And so actually doing the work meant that I was getting better at the skill and being able to deliver better, being able to create better content and be able to reach more people. So it was really important to I knew this was the right thing to do and do it. And then everything else followed.
Was there ever a point at the start where you thought maybe I should just pack this in, go back to go back to the bank and serve the wealthy?
Oh yeah, definitely. 100%. I mean, when I first, because I got made redundant, and so that's what really propelled me in 2019. It was the third time I had been made redundant in the space of about 5 years. So, it was like, okay, cool. I understand. This is the workplace is not for me. I need to have more control over my future and what I'm doing. So that, but for me, it was I knew I could make more money being employed than doing this, going down this self-employed route and doing content, and I could make more money doing it. But I said to myself, I know that that's not my passion. That's not where I feel accepted. And I think sometimes, for me, that acceptance was more important. I'd rather be in a place where I feel like I'm wanted and accepted than a place where I might make more money, but I'm not really wanted there. I'm just tolerated. And so what happened is me going out to do my content allowed me to, express myself and be me. Whereas I felt like when I was being employed, a lot of the time I couldn't be myself. I couldn't be authentic to who I am. My ideas weren't taken on board. The way I saw the world wasn't appreciated. But through my content later on down the line, a lot of those companies I've bumped into people and they're like, "You're doing amazing and it's excellent." And I'm like, "I tried to do this when I worked for you and you didn't want to hear it." Do you know what I mean? So sometimes, it's other people haven't got the vision. You've got to have a vision for yourself, like, and know what you're trying to do and understand that because it's your vision, other people might not be able to see it.
Yeah. And the flip side to my question I just asked, in terms of, was there any ever points where you thought about giving up? What were some of those early events that you thought, hang on a minute, this might have real legs to it?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the feedback was really good. People that were engaging were really enjoying the content and so forth. The biggest, I say, the big, obviously, like I said, did it in lockdown. It really grew. When we came out of lockdown, I'll never forget this. I had a meeting a client in Mayfair, and I was on the way back at Green Park Station, and I went to buy a bottle of water in the Marks and Spencer's next door, and this guy just stopped me and he's like, "You're Emmanuel," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, hi." He's like, "Yeah, I watch your content," and I'm like, "Oh, great." He's like, "No, no, no. I just completed on a house yesterday. Just completed on a house yesterday, and that's because I watched your content for the last 2 years. And because I watched your content, I learned how to save, how to be better with money, what I needed to do to get a deposit, and the confidence to then go and do it. And now I'm the first person in my family to buy a house, all because of your
Wow.
content. And I can't believe that I literally completed on a house yesterday because of you. And I'm here today meeting you in person." And it was like, actually, these videos that I'm doing in my room, I don't know who's taking it in, but it's making a difference. And that, I always remember that, because it always encourages me. Because if it changes one person's life, I don't care how many followers I get. If people are really changing in real life, like I get stopped. I had these kids stop me the other day. I mean, he must have been 18, 19, and I was in Leicester, and he's gone to Leicester University, and I was coming back to London. He was coming back to London, and he's like, "Oh my goodness, I watched you on a podcast, and it's my mum that sent me the link. Can we take a picture so I can show my mum that I met you? Because she's the one that always tells me to watch your videos." And if you can imagine in this day and age, how much negativity there is on social media and so forth, for me, my videos and my content to be shared, for parents to feel like, I want my children to see this person and what this person has to say, to be an encouragement to that generation, again, is such a blessing. And I feel privileged that, the content that I'm putting out, parents feel is something that they want their children to aspire to, and I'm an influence their parents actually want to, on their kids.
Wow. What a story that is, for the individual to stop you about, buying the house from listening to your content, and then also, that mum and son story, that just goes to show the ripple effect of what you're doing, and have been doing for many years. Um, it does prove that, you've got to be in it for the long term here, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also so important. I always speak to advisors and just say, like, if you ask anyone in this country who's the number one financial advisor in this country, they're going to tell you Martin Lewis. As we all know, Martin Lewis is not a qualified financial advisor. His knowledge is probably up there with the best of them, and the content that he delivers is fantastic. And I always say the point is that we have to be present and we have to be out here sharing this knowledge. It's like, what the knowledge we have cannot just go to our 200, 300 clients and keep it there. It needs to be shared with the nation because it can make a difference to so many different people. So I feel like as financial advisors, with the knowledge that we have, it's almost our responsibility to be out here sharing this information. Maybe not on the scale that I do it. I'm not saying you have to do it on the scale that I do it, but if it is just visiting a few schools in your local area and giving them a talk on what financial advisors do and how they can be better with their money, if we all just did that little bit, it make so much better for a whole generation coming up.
And with the content you are producing, does it still bring in that high net worth type client to you?
Good question. Yeah, you know what? Not only does it bring it in, I don't really have to go out and hunt for it. I'll be honest. I'm only recently now starting to really take the financial advice side more serious and start to convert more. But I have footballers, musicians, people on television, doctors, lawyers. People find me all over, and the best thing about it is that there's that additional level of trust that actually this is not just someone saying they're a financial advisor. When I switch on my TV, I see them. When I go on my laptop, I see them. Like I go on YouTube, I see them. I go places where that I trust. I see this person working with those brands and those people. So it's someone I can trust. And so, one of the biggest issues with finance at the moment is that people are being scammed. There's a lot of fraud happening. People don't know who to trust. So the fact that I have a presence beyond just me saying I'm a financial advisor means that people are much more confident in trusting me and working with me. So I get people coming to me saying, or do I have enough for you to work with me? Do you know what I mean? As opposed to me having to pitch myself and what I do. They've seen me over the years. And I guess I got one of those faces that's very memorable, but people will just remember, oh, I watched you on this show, or I've seen your video on here. And so because of that, I don't have to sell. I don't have to explain, oh, you need a financial advisor because of, no, people are like, I've seen the impact that you've had. I trust what you do. And so I want to work with you. And so that's made the transition now going from I'm now moving more or less out of the content side of things and more back into the financial advice side of things, made it a lot more easier.
Yeah, amazing. And, high net worth individuals are still going to need credit cards. And the fact you're creating content about credit cards, mortgages, scams, that's still relevant to everyone. No one's isolated from that, are they?
No, and that is the key point. What you just said there, I think, is the bit a lot of people miss, is that actually high net worth people are being chased down all the time for their money. But who's just telling them about the best bank account that they can open, or the latest cash savings account, or actually what they can do for their kids? I've got clients literally where I've done talks at schools, and then the kids have gone to their parents and said, this guy's come and talk to us. And then now the client is like, oh, I want you to manage my money because my child has never ever spoke about a financial advisor or someone in finance so highly. And so, and then also when we think about the transfer from one generation to the next, I know for me personally, I am training and teaching that next generation. So the people that I'm with now, they might not have the wealth, but they're going to have it in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And guess what? I'm young enough to still be around in that time to be able to help and support. So for me, I see it as an investment. I'm investing into these younger people. I've helped and supported them. So as they start to build wealth and as they start to make money, it's a natural progression for them to say, "You've helped me to get to this point. Now I've got this money. I want you to invest it for me."
I bet that there is a 0.001% of financial advisors whose lead source is 15-year-olds who are then bringing in the clients of 40, 50, 60-year-olds to you, indirectly via a 15, 18-year-old or whatever it is. I bet
Yeah.
there's a minuscule percentage of financial advisors out there having that as a lead source, eh?
No, definitely. And I think just having conversations about other things, like I talk about marriage, I talk about relationships, I talk about, being able to create content means that people will buy into you. People buy people. As financial advisors, that's one of the first things we're taught. People buy people. But also, people have bought into me as Emmanuel Asuquo, the brand, Emmanuel Asuquo, the guy on the TV. And so the finance side is just one element. People trust me to say, like, I have people call me when I've had husband and wife, sit down and say, Manuel, we want to have a meeting with you. we're going through these issues. Can you come and be, the mediator? I'm not a counselor, but I'm a trusted individual to people because of the content that I've done. They have literally listened to my content and it's had a positive impact on them. So therefore, they see me as someone positive to bring into their situations. And I think that's the importance of content. People get a chance to get to know you before they even meet you. They've built up a picture of you based on the content that you've created.
Yeah, amazing. I'd love to know about your TV experience because it's such a rare thing for a financial advisor to be on TV. So, talk us through. Must have been a surreal moment for you. How was it for you? I'd love to know.
It was very surreal. It was a very surreal moment. It was never expected. People ask me, "Oh, did you plan to do TV?" No, I never planned to do TV at all. I was very happy doing my videos on social media. Having the odd video go kind of viral, and then keep it moving and just keep going and helping people and so forth. I never expected it to happen. And then, the Channel 4 opportunity happened. Then we had lockdown and so forth. And the rest is history. And I think for me, it's been a fantastic opportunity. I've gone up and down the country. I've filmed in Scotland. I've done stuff in Wales, up north. I've been able to, go and have impact for people and be the voice of people throughout the country. I've been able to go to government and be able to speak to government and say, this is what's happening in the country. And I wouldn't know what's happening in the country if wasn't here being on TV and being able to have access to people's issues. I remember, again, when we had the pandemic and I was doing some content and realizing that actually, as much as we complain about being in London and how London's hard, I went up north. I mean, there are people that didn't have internet. The school had to give them a dongle for them to be able to work from home. They don't have Wi-Fi in their house. It was mind blowing. I don't know anyone in London that I know that doesn't have Wi-Fi in their house. Do you know what I mean? No matter how poor or council state or their background is, these are standard things. Whereas it wasn't available to them. The school had to provide them with a laptop. The school had to provide them with a dongle to get internet so they could do their education at home. And so when you start to understand what people are going through, then you understand why some people might have certain views or feel cheated in certain ways. And you're able to then create content to help and support them in those ways and able to speak for them. I'm able to work with charities and organizations to support the most vulnerable in society as a financial advisor. And, I don't feel like when people think about financial advisors, they don't just think high net worth. That's not what they think. They think somebody that can help them with their money. And so as financial advisors, for me, that's what it's about. I've got this knowledge that allows me to be able to help the most wealthiest, but also the poorest as well. And again, sometimes people are poor, but due to lack of education, it's not always because they're reckless with their money. They actually just don't know how. They've never been taught. We never had money lessons at school. We had maths, English, science. We never had money lessons at school. So sometimes when we're judging people who are coming from certain backgrounds or making certain mistakes, it's very unfair. And TV allowed me to get into the homes of these people, allowed people to write in and with their issues and then find ways to solve it. I learned more about the benefit system and all of the energy grants that you can get and all of this stuff that I just didn't know before. TV allowed me to be able to have exposure to that, and it's just been a fantastic experience.
And I can imagine it's opened so many doors, like you said, with charities, with the government, which is a massive benefit to your cause of helping people. Not only are you raising awareness, but you're now getting in the right places to have an influence on the key decision makers to say, hang on a minute, we really do need to be sorting this out, don't we?
Yeah, exactly, and that's the powerful thing for me is that it's great to help people, but you can only help one person at a time, right? I can only be in one place at one time. But when you can now change laws and regulations, and you can amplify charities so people can realize that there are grants that are available that they never know, you can go and say that on national television, and now millions of people now know that there's this money available to them or this support available to them that they never knew was available to them before. To me, that is absolutely life changing, and it's a privilege to be able to be in this position.
Yeah. Now, I want to come on to financial influencers. So you are a fully qualified, very experienced FCA authorized individual.
Yes.
Not all financial influencers are, and
No.
many out there, producing financial advice online, not
Yeah.
in investments and pensions necessarily, but sometimes is. They might not have half the qualifications you have, if any, potentially.
Hmm.
They can get a bit of a bad rap, and it's a little bit of a new thing, so the industry's not quite caught onto it yet. What's your take on financial influencers? Do you think they're helping or hindering matters?
I think the majority are helping. I think when I speak to financial advisors, the majority of financial advisors, especially right now, most of them are saying, "I will not speak to a client that doesn't have 100K or more." Now, if we look at the stats of how many people have 100K cash or within a investable assets, we're talking less than 10% of the population. But then when we think about them, there's not enough financial advisors anyway. So we're financial advisors in a very lucky position where they don't need to go and fight for clients. There's not enough there's not enough advisors for the number of people that need advice, so they can focus on there. So that leaves a gap. And before you could go to your bank, but as we've seen, banks are closed on the high street, so you can't go to your bank because your bank might not be on the might not be available. And again, they're closing more and more branches year on year on year. So actually, if I need some advice, if I've come into if I've got £5,000, which again, for somebody coming from a very humble beginnings, £5,000 is a lot of money. Now, in the world of financial advice and being a financial advisor, £5,000 isn't even your emergency fund. So for the average advisor, it's so small they wouldn't want to think about it. But for somebody who only earns 20-25K a year and still has to live, and they've been able to get £5,000, they need advice. They need support. They need to know what to do with it. And if we all know that leaving in a savings account over the longer term is going to erode the value due to inflation, how do I start investing? Well, if all the advisors will only speak to me if I have £100,000, I need somebody. And so that is where financial influencers come in to let the people that the financial advisors don't want to speak to, the people the banks don't want to speak to actually get some advice and get relatable advice. Not every day you want to see somebody in a suit and tie that sounds like they've come from Oxford or Cambridge talk to you about money. Sometimes you just want somebody, whether you're a woman, you might just want to hear it from a woman. Whether you're up north, you might want to hear it from someone up north. You might not every day you want to hear it from someone in London, or someone you want to hear it from somebody that's relatable to you. If you're a parent, you want to hear it from a parent and what they're doing so they understand your situation. That's what financial influencers allow people to do. Now, where financial influencers go wrong is crossing the giving knowledge out and then actually giving advice. And I think that is where it's very dangerous, because a lot of financial influencers are giving tips based on their lived experience. And so the problem with that is that your life and my life is different. Let's put in another profession. If we looked at medicine, if because the two of us had similar symptoms, I can't just go and take the same medicine you're taking. The doctor wouldn't say, "Oh yeah, we both got similar symptoms, so it's similar medicine." The doctor would check your medical history, your family history. Do you understand? And so it's the same thing with investing. Just because we both have £50,000 doesn't mean it should be invested in the same way. Because that worked for you doesn't mean it's going to work for me. Because again, my 50,000 and your 50,000, what we may need, our objectives, our goals, what may happen are different. So that's where I think financial influencers are overstepping the mark. And I understand it's all in the name of wanting to help. They're not doing it in a malicious way, but actually they have to understand that it's a profession. There's a reason why we have to go out there as financial advisors and get qualified. And so, yes, let people know their options and leave it to them, or point them in the direction of a financial advisor to take that additional advice, rather than being the advisor and telling them, this is what you should do, this is what I did, and you should do the same. Because it's a very dangerous path that they're making people walk down.
Yeah, very interesting points you're making there, and I totally agree with you. I see it as a benefit, but it is just making sure that line is clear as to what's advice and what's, as you put it very well, lived experience. That is fantastic. Now, something you touched on there is about many advisors there's not enough advisors to cope with the amount of clients out there. How would you like to see the industry adapt or improve to bring more advisors into the industry?
Yeah, I think number one is I think we need to do more education around financial advice and becoming a financial advisor. Number one, just so that it's a job. I never knew that financial advisor existed until I got into the bank, and that's when I found out. So I think we need to have greater exposure there, and do more talks and make it as a career path. But I also think what we really, really, really need to improve is the fact of paying people a salary. I think financial advice is one of the few career paths where people will go out, get qualified, and then we tell them to be self-employed, and we're not going to pay them. And it's very difficult to compete with other industries, even in finance. When you think about if you're going to be an accountant, if you're going to be working asset management, all of these other roles come with a salary. Even if you work in the bank, if you're a cashier, if you're a private banker, whatever it may be, these are salaried roles. But financial advice is that one role where we say, unless you work for a big bank, it's self-employed. And I think that is a big deterrent to people because you studied, you need to pay, you need to have a salary, and then also then putting people in debt. I don't believe in that either. Okay, we'll pay you a salary, but now you owe us, and if you leave, we got to take this money back. There's no other. It's very scary. It's a very scary way to get started. And I think that's something that puts people off. I think we have to, as an industry, we have to work out whether it be an apprenticeship, whether it has to be part of the levy that they take or whatever. But for young people to come in, they should not have to worry about getting paid when they're learning something brand new. If I'm learning a brand new trade, I should not be expected to be very good at it from day one. No other trade does that. Because again, with financial advice, if you're not good from day one and you come in and you can't sell, then you're going to end up, either being in debt or not being able to stay long and having to leave. That has to be a problem that has to be solved.
And it's just relying on then the big players who've got the pockets to fund it. It is like you're saying, everyone trying to, do their bit and support people to come into the industry. Now, obviously, if you're paying them a salary, that's a cost going out. So the business has got to get something in return. And so it's important the young person recognizes that and goes, well, how can I be helping add pounds back into the till? But equally, there's roles, there's support, there's duties they can be doing that will help the business on day one, and also when they become an advisor as well. So it's everyone doing their bit, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think again, we have to be careful because, again, if you are looking at somebody just doing it, if I've gone and done a degree, because again, a lot of financial advisors want, graduates, like telling them to come in and then say, for example, become an admin. It's not that there's anything wrong with admin, but if I've just done a degree, I wouldn't expect those duties. Do you know what I mean? No one else is offering me those duties. So if it's a case of, it's making sure that when we're targeting people to come into the industry, we're offering them career progression that makes sense. It's very clear that, okay, this is what you're going to do. This is what your training is going to consist of. These are the departments that you need to learn and understand. And this is what you're going to understand. But it's all building to the point of you becoming a financial advisor. And what I've seen a lot of the time is that people have come in, they've done the administration, or they've come in as a paraplanner. They're really good at paraplanning, and now the advisor doesn't want to let them become an advisor because they're like, how do I replace you as a paraplanner? And it's like, that's not what we agreed in the beginning. I can't be good at my job, and now you don't want to let me move on and progress because you don't know how you're going to replace me. So there has to be agreements. And again, these are the types of things, these are the types of feedback that people get, and they'll avoid becoming financial advisors.
Yeah, I sadly hear that story far too often. You mentioned at the start when you became qualified in the bank as a cashier and you became a financial advisor, you were one of the youngest in the bank to do that. For anyone who's young and wanting to pursue a career in financial planning, whether it's mortgages or insurance or financial planning itself, what advice would you have for someone who is young, who maybe receive feedback, you're too young to give advice? Because I hear that every now and again. You've been there. What's your feedback?
I think for me, I think older people felt that I was too young to give advice, but mainly they were my colleagues, as in my colleagues felt, oh, I was too young. But the reality is that when I would go and see, people who were 60, 65, 70. I mean, these are people that could be my grandparents. when I was only 22, my grandparents. And they would be more than happy for me to be their advisor. They loved my energy. They loved that I cared. I think it's how you treat them. I think the fact that, you offered a good service was the main important thing. And the fact that I was very open, you know, for me, I found that it was almost an advantage because they would, when they found out my age or when they saw me, they'd know my age and know I'm young. And they'd be like, I've got a grandchild your age. I've got a son. I wish my son was as motivated as you or as professional as you to be doing this type of stuff, and so it was more, I was very much encouraged and supported, and clients didn't really find it a problem to work with me because I was young. And again, I was very confident in saying, actually, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm going to go and find out and I'm going to come back to you. And people respect honesty. I think when you're young and you're trying to pretend like you know it all, it's impossible. My clients literally had pensions that were older than me. Like do you know what I mean? They had been investing in their pensions longer than I had been born. So for me to know the ins and outs of their schemes would be a lie. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm going to do is going to find out and make sure that we all know the right information before we make a decision. And I think that level of confidence, that level of honesty and openness with them meant that they would believe in me and trust in me and just offering that service. I feel like my clients knew, even though I was young, they knew that they were important to me, as opposed to maybe an older advisor that has loads of clients and they're just another number. And so that was what I always used. I'm like, you are really important to me. I need you as a client, and I'm going to do the best I can to help you with your situation. And making them feel that way meant that they loved my energy, they loved that I cared, and they saw past my age and so forth. So I think that really helps.
I love that. And be careful how much you listen to that noise of someone
Exactly.
trying to put you off, because maybe they just feel a little bit threatened.
Yeah. And you know what? The funniest thing is that I remember when I was in my team, when I was in Barclays, I was the youngest by far. I was brand new. And within, we had leadership tables. And I remember the first month where I was top of the table. And everybody was just like, how has this happened? I literally learned from all of them. I used to go and shadow each and every one of them, sit in their meetings and learn what did they do good, what could I add, and so forth. And then I just offered that and I just developed from there. And so it is a case of sometimes people have their own biases and their own fears and insecurities, and they'll project that on you. You've got to be confident in who you are and what you do. But always remember, for me, especially as a job as a financial advisor, the most important thing is that we're here to help. So yes, you want to make money in your life and so forth. But what's most important is that we're here to help. And my clients always knew that I was doing everything. Even if I made a mistake, I was trying to help. And I'm trying to help. And that's the most important thing. And I think when we lose that, when we forget that, and it becomes about the money or the cars or the competition with other advisors, that's where everything goes wrong. As long as you can look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm waking up every day to do my best to help my clients, I think you're in a winning position.
Amazing. Well, I think that comes to a beautiful end for us, really. It's been amazing to learn more about your story. There's so many things that our audience can take away from today, and maybe this is a little bit of inspiration to you guys out there listening. Maybe we should all be doing a little bit more content creation just to spread the message, regardless of what it is, because it pays off. And as you're living proof, keep chipping away and amazing things can come. So thank you so much for joining us, Emmanuel.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.